That emigration to South America in the later 1800s is a notable episode in Welsh history. The migrants sought a new homeland and sailed in the ship Mimosa to put down roots in a far-away land. Yes, they could have chosen a different destination. And what if they had decided to settle somewhere in the Middle East, such as Palestine? This isn't a flight of fancy. It's what could well have happened, because before deciding on Patagonia, Palestine had been proposed as the perfect location for a Welsh settlement. The idea was promoted by a remarkable man from mid-Wales. More about him in a moment. The background scenario is that by the mid-1800s, English was making inroads into everyday life in much of Wales. It caused great concern among some that the Welsh language, culture and religious identity were under great threat. There was much discussion about a possible Welsh homeland in another part of the world where people could thrive and maintain their Welshness. The idea was met with quite a bit of enthusiasm. The man behind it was John Mills. He was born in Llanidloes, Montgomeryshire in 1812. He left school at the age of 13 to work in a family textile factory. He had a great thirst for knowledge and voraciously read books, even as he worked at his machine. Like others in his family, he was very musical. In fact, as a young man, he wrote a book on music, Gramadeg Cerddoriaeth, a grammar of music, and he travelled around Wales, lecturing on music. Mills taught himself Latin, Hebrew and Greek and became a Calvinist Methodist minister. In 1841 he was a minister at Rhuthun, later moving to London. His job there was as a missionary, trying to persuade London's Jews to convert to Christianity. In time he became very sympathetic to the Jewish community. He travelled to Palestine in the 1850s when it was still a part of the Ottoman Empire. His aim, as in London, was to convert the Jewish community of Jerusalem. He became fired with enthusiasm for Palestine. On his return to Wales, he proposed a Welsh settlement there, in preference to Patagonia, which had already been under discussion. He wrote about it in various Welsh language newspapers. It seems that his thought was that such a community would boost missionary work for his brand of Christianity, as well as preserving a Welsh identity. He wrote about the good prospects for industrious people in a fertile land, where, he claimed, life would be easier than that in Wales. He described Palestine as a land asleep through a long Sabbath, to be awakened by honest Welsh labour. Quite a few people apparently liked the idea. Mills stated that several leading figures in Wales wanted him to take up the matter with the Turkish ambassador, which he said he'd already done, and added that things were looking promising. His experiences among the Jewish people in London and from 2 visits to the Middle East resulted in several books, in English and Welsh. British Jews, Palestina, 3 months' residence in Nablus and an account of the modern Samaritans. He wrote much under his own name and also in newspapers and magazines with the pen name YWladfa. But it was noted that Mills had little, if any, success in converting Jews to Christianity. Some at home began to question what he was doing. One of his initial supporters was Michael D. Jones. Michael Daniel Jones was an influential man, a Welsh Congregationalist minister and college principal. He had lived for a while in the United States amongst Welsh emigrants. He must have seen how easily Welsh arrivals were assimilated into their new communities and lost their language and cultural identity. He must also have wanted to avoid that happening again. In time, Jones's support for the Palestine plan cooled. His thoughts turned to the rugged, wide-open spaces of sparsely populated Patagonia. He persuaded others of the viability of this project, which for many grew more appealing than the idea of a Palestine settlement. In May 1865, 150 Welsh men, women and children set sail from Liverpool for their 2-month voyage to a far-away land. One analysis of the differences in the two men's plans is that while Mills and Jones both wanted to establish settlements to protect a Welsh identity, there were differences in their overall ambitions. Mills wanted to promote his type of religion in the Holy Land and make Wales more prominent on the world stage, but the community would still be strongly linked to the British Empire. Jones, on the other hand, seemed to prefer a clean break, with a settlement that was much more distant and politically independent, the better to achieve preservation of the language and culture and with greater autonomy. The Mills plan withered and died. He stayed in London and remained a minister, but resigned from his task of trying to convert Jews. He died in 1873, aged just 61. John Mills was a very clever and driven man, a prolific author, linguist and musician. His personal achievements were many, but his great idea, that of a Welsh community in Palestine, was never to be. Had it come to pass, we can only try to imagine how that community would have fared during the tumultuous years that lay ahead for Palestine.